Yo, Nina.
What's up, Fred?
How we gonna get folks talking about youth incarceration?
We have to take initiative and make youth prison abolition a topic of discussion.
What up, Devin?
Um,
I'm Brett.
I'm Nino.
We're Uncaged Potential.
Justice from the ground up.
Let's chop it up. What up, y'all? Welcome to Uncaged Potential. I'm your host, Brett Christopher. This is my co-host.
Nino.
I'm Rodney.
We have a guest speaker today. Her name is Queen Wade.
What up, Queen?
Queen Wade is a community organizer and a restorative justice practitioner based in Philadelphia. Queen has been focusing on organizing abolition and community-driven solutions, understanding from her own lived experiences and those of her community. The current systems we live in do not create care or community safe spaces for youth. Queen, originally from Boston, Massachusetts, has been organizing restorative and transformative justice strategies for survivors of community and family violence for the past 7 years and is honored to step into the amazing work of community-led restorative justice in Philadelphia. Queen holds two main roles in her restorative work in Philadelphia. First, as program manager of Healing Futures, Philadelphia's first restorative diversion program housed at the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project known as YASP. Through this program, Queen is given the opportunity to facilitate restorative justice processes that expunge youth charges. Queen also co-founded a transformative justice organization, Dynamic Justice Collective, which trains community members to be transformative justice practitioners and hold community processes for harm completely outside of the courts.
Mm-hmm.
Thank y'all so much for having me. Really excited to be here today.
Nice. Welcome, Queen. So we're gonna be talking about abolition today, the history of what it is, and what can we do as a community to get everybody going on this fight. Let's see. We're gonna jump into the first question. Queen, what exactly is abolition? For people, if you can simplify it.
That's a great question. I think if I would define abolition, and it's so funny because I feel like if you asked me this a year ago or you asked me this 2 years ago, my answers would be so different. But I kind of like to describe abolition now as like a two-part thing. It's about like dismantling the systems in place right now that are hurting us and building up new systems that are actually here to help us. And so that's like the easy 2-sentence way I can describe abolition to like anybody who's just learning about it the first time.
Okay.
Absolutely appreciate that, Queen. So just a little bit more reference. Abolition, our whole goal as Care Not Control is to end all youth prisons in Pennsylvania, hopefully in the entire United States, once we get there. And when we say end youth prisons, we don't mean just shut it down and all them people don't got their jobs no more and we just throwing kids to the streets. Nah, when we say abolition and shut it down, we mean dismantle it, create a space that actually reforms the community and divert our young people into success. So just to be clear, got anything you want to add,
I just have a question for you, and it would be, how is youth abolition, important for the future of our youth?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I really love how you like defined it more specifically as like a goal, right? Of like ending prisons, because I think that is kind of the natural next step where abolition come from, right? Like a lot of times we learn about abolition through like Quakers and white people, right? But abolition was actually started by enslaved Africans and indigenous people.
That part.
And it was an ending to slavery and an ending to our unjust systems. And so prison abolition is an extension of that, right? It's us continuing like that legacy, that like mission of our ancestors of destroying systems that kill us, that harm us, that hurt our children and our babies, right? And so when I think about like youth abolition, I think about like young people being the leaders of that movement, right? Like Philly and Pennsylvania largely has some of the largest youth incarceration rate in the world. And so how are we actually allowing the people who are most impacted, like, you know, a lot of these systems talk about like, oh, you know, the people at the center should be the leaders. How are we actually doing that, right? And so I think that's how youth abolition is important, is it gives young people the ability to be like, we actually are the experts of our experience. We know what's best for us, and not like the adults or the COs or the judges or the courts. It's the young people being like, no, we know what's best for us and we can get those things ourselves with the support of community. So that's why I think youth abolition means.
Okay, thank you.
Facts. And that speak to me solely because I remember just being a young boy, being in court, and the entire time everybody talking around me and they determining my fate. And then I'm just sitting there, I don't know what's going on. I don't know the jargon. And then I'm like, these people don't care about me. They want their paper. Once they get their check, they gonna be gone, and I'm gonna see my attorney maybe next court date, if anything.
Yeah.
Rodney, how you feeling?
Yeah. Love to know, Rodney. Like, talk about abolition with us, please.
I feel like y'all basically like, touch the point basically we're explaining what abolition is. How I feel about it, I feel like it's something that's needed, and the organizer basically, like how Queen said, it's helpful for our youth and families to know that a system is not here to rehabilitate us and is actually here to destroy us.
Facts.
Yeah, those are just my thoughts on abolition. I feel like y'all pretty much covered it.
I actually love that you said that, because historically the system is doing exactly what they designed to do. If we remember, police were created in America to monitor and control black folks. It was to the point where back in the day, a 5-year-old white kid can get a black person, a grown-ass adult, arrested. We can curse? Or I bet. And I always thought that was like
And there we
completely,
go.
I always
broke
thought
the
that was
seal.
completely ridiculous, how that actually was a practice. And then they had like the night watchers.
Yeah.
And then that continue on. And if you think about it, if we fast forward all the way into the future, I think I was like maybe in elementary school, middle school at the time, when like Trayvon Martin, he got shot by, I guess, top flight security. I don't even know what boy it was, but he considered himself like one of those night watchers. He walk around his community and monitor and control and figure out what black people is around here.
Which is funny, because that actually came from cop watching, which is a Black Panther Party program, right? Like, night watching didn't exist in the way that, like, folks who do it in that way, like, practiced it. Like, that was just being a cop. It was just going, getting trained to be a sheriff or getting trained to be a cop. It was the Black Panthers who were like, no, we need to know how to do this in our communities. We need to have night watches, cop watches. And then again, that got co-opted, right? Then white people took that and were like, we're going to use this in our suburbs to make us safe,
good.
right? Like, oh, wow, this thing is kind of cool. Maybe we should use that. But again, all of these things, and not to say all these things come from us, right? I don't want to sound too conceited. But like, a lot of what I think I feel like what you guys are going to hear from me a lot is like, a lot of these strategies, abolition, liberation, restorative justice, transformative justice, they come from us. These fancy words that were put on them are not how our community practices them, but we're the originators of it. We're the ones who created mutual aid. We're the ones who created abolition because we had no other choice. And I think that's also what's important about abolition is it's done by the people who really don't have another choice, right? Like, there was no other choice. Then, like slavery was not an option. So what was the other option? Jail, prison is not an option. So what's the other option? And I think that's what abolition is also asking of us.
Big facts. So while we on the topic of history of abolition, outside of slavery, right? Because everybody knows slavery, that's the biggest one. What is some other historical or maybe not so known abolition successes out there, if you know any?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so... it's funny, like, there are so many different ones, like, small and big, that, like, even today, we might not always think of abolition, but, I think we can put it in there. I also really encourage people who, like, haven't already, there's a really great website called A Million Experiments, and it's a website that was created by Interrupting Criminalization, and it has, like, a whole database, like, websites and organizations of people who are doing non-police work. People who are doing the work of how do we take care of our communities, how do we build safety, that has nothing to do with police and courts. So for anything like in the past 5-10 years, if you want to go check out A Million Experiments, I would say definitely check out that website, because they have like things that are added. Like, we could add this right now to A Million Experiments, because it's being consistently added and uploaded. Because our experiments, right, to get to abolition are consistently being added. But when I think about like some like immediate ones that, again, always feel like, we were doing this before this was like an app or before this was cool, is like, there was a lot of stuff that was obviously happening around Jim Crow, right? And a lot of folks doing abolitionist work, right, that was being kind of lumped into like, integration or civil rights work, but a lot of times was like explicitly abolitionist. And one of the big ones that was, that I always like to kind of talk about is like ride sharing. Ride sharing was a very regular thing that was happening and was like organized in a lot of the South during Jim Crow, when it was, time to go vote at the polls, when it was time to do protests. These were things where folks were actually buying cars together in a community to drive each other to different places. And that was also to resist bus boycotts. So like in this way of resisting the bus boycotts, we created a new system of care and safety that also helped people, right? Like it was our version of carpooling and Lyft before it even existed. And so even like small practices like that like aren't written in a history book anywhere, but I just found in a documentary about like, you know, Zora Neale Hurston. I was like, this is so cool. Like, why don't we know this stuff? And so that's like the stuff that I'm always interested in, is like the little things of abolition that maybe don't make the history books, but are the things that kept our people safe and well, you know, that weren't for, you know, anybody to really take credit for, was just for our community to be well and be cared for.
Word. And I love that you mentioned that, actually, because when you were talking about it, it made me think of all the other ways abolition is a thing. Because when some people that don't really understand abolition, they the first thing about prisons, police, shut it down. But in reality, I was reading this book by Dorothy Roberts, I believe, and it was about abolishing the child welfare system in DHS, and the impact that they put on the Black community, and, you know, stripping them away from their homes and stuff like that. And I was like, absolutely, because DHS, especially in Pennsylvania, has been doing some damage to my family included. I got a little experience. So when I think of abolition, when I want other people to think when they hear abolition, it's not just shut down the police. It's shut down any systems, any spaces that is harming communities or harming people, and creating a safer space where we can have a better future for all, type thing. You got any more questions, Nino?
I want to know, like, how do we get towards abolition? Because it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to happen overnight. So how do we get there?
We got a lot of ops in it too, right?
Oh, right. That's one of the main things, right? And yeah, I mean, I'm also, I want to like hear from all of us, right? Because we're all abolitionists. We're all practicing abolition in real ways that I think is really important. And that's like what I also hope that like everybody takes from this, is like abolition is not something that like only organizers get to do or only leaders get to do, right? It's something we all practice. If we believe that prisons and police are not the answer for how we keep our community safe and how we actually keep people like connected to each other, right? Like somebody goes to prison, somebody goes to jail, they're completely disconnected from community. And that's a whole other part of this that we're not talking about the disconnection that happens. And so like, how do we actually keep people connected? If you're passionate about that, you're an abolitionist in my book, right? If those are the things that you care about, you're an abolitionist. And so I think for me, like those everyday practices are having those conversations with people you trust, talking about like, what does safety mean for us? When we go home together, when we go to a party, when we're doing this or that, how do we make sure we keep each other safe and well? How are we making sure we know each other's like triggers or each other's, you know, pressure points, so we can be more mindful of each other, so I can treat you with care and you can treat me with care. That's how we start practicing these things, so they don't get to the point of, we need to even call the police, we even need prisons, right? And I think that's for me, like the practices that I do, like, you know, Gabby's at a film, but Gabby could tell you, like, we have so many conversations all the time about how we just take care of each other. And I see that as like a real connection in our abolitionist practice, right? Keeping each other accountable, having people you trust to be like, yeah, I fucked up. And to be like, yeah, and Queen, I love you enough to be like, yeah, I'm going to hold your hand and you're going to have to own that. And like, that's accountability and that's community, right? So like, those are some everyday practices that like, again, you know, young people in Healing Futures, we use the word prickly instead of like, that's annoying or that's hard. We'll be like, this is prickly. This feels prickly.
That's cute.
And so it might feel prickly, right? But it's necessary. Like, it's a thing that we need to do to be able to like have these conversations and do the things to keep us safe, so police don't even have to enter our homes, right?
Exactly.
So DHS doesn't have to get called. We can do these things ourselves. Community can be these things ourselves. Like, medical system is how I actually got invested in abolition. It wasn't through the courts and prison. Even though much of my family has been in and out of it, it was my mom being really impacted and having like a chronic illness and seeing the ways that she was mistreated throughout my whole life in the medical industry that made me understand, like, no, this isn't it. And it's connected, right, to DHS. You know, like those, you know, medical professionals were the first people to call DHS when they would see how sick my mom was and she had 4 kids. They'd be like, how can a woman, a Black woman, a disabled Black woman, be able to healthily raise 4 kids? You know?
Prejudging before they even know the T.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
And yeah, like my mom is who taught me how to be an organizer, right? Like my mom was the person who did people's taxes and our projects for free.
That part.
Like she was really making sure that people had meals. My mom was trying to become a foster mom so that she could have other people in our neighborhood, like other kids would have a place to sleep some nights. So like, again, you don't have to learn this stuff from a class. You don't have to learn this stuff from a teacher. Like for me, it was really just learning it from like I knew from the time I was 7 that I couldn't call 911 if my mom had a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that mean? And that's how I got started with abolition, you know?
Thank you for sharing that. That's a powerful piece. And before we jump too deep into abolition, I want to just shout out what's happening in abolition this week within Philadelphia, because I think folks need to know. So the first step is Collective Climb, as a Black-led nonprofit in Philadelphia that recently opened up and empowers youth ages 15 to 19 through
that's
restorative
right.
justice and community building. Some of their key programs is the Restorative Community Project. That's a 3-month paid fellowship where our young teens, they can learn about justice, healing, and leadership. So that's real big, real big.
Yes.
We also got our Youth Restorative Justice Diversion Program where they work with the DA's office and they hook up with the kids and they help them, expunge them records and get a little thing going for our young people so they can have them successful futures. They also have a youth advisory board, which we all know if you're going to have a youth-led program that you say is youth center for the youth, we need a youth advisory board so we can hold folks accountable and the youth can let them know, like, this is for us and this ain't, right? And if you want to get connected to this, you can find them at collectiveclimb.org. That's COLLECTIVE, climb. If you don't know how to spell it, I'm concerned.org. Our location is 15 in Pine Street, Philadelphia, PA. Collective Climb is all about supporting the youth. Get with them. All right, and now the next thing, this is actually about the history of abolition. It's a free 99. I know y'all love free. Free event within the community that teach people about the history of abolition. It's called Free as One, Black World Making in the Pennsylvania Abolition Society. So this exhibit focused on the Black-led fight for freedom and abolition in Pennsylvania. So when you step up in there, you'll see historical documents like receipts and papers showing how Black individuals had to pay for their freedom. Pay for freedom in a country that's the land of the free? That's crazy. They also got some AI generated photos of the Black leaders that was not able to be kept. They also got artifacts and records from the Pennsylvania Abolition Law Society, and they also have the Leon Gardner collection. So I'm gonna go check that out. You can pull up on them through February all the way up until May 23rd. All right, so pull up on them. Again, it's free 99. It's at the Historical Society of Philadelphia, 13th and Locust Street, Philadelphia, PA. Visiting hours are average, but if you want to figure it out a little deeper, go on their website. All right. How you feeling, Rodney? I feel like that should be a segment. How you feeling, Rodney?
Right.
I'm feeling well.
That part.
Yeah, like just as far as like when the other question that y'all mentioned about it wasn't the history of abolition, right? It was the other one. It was how do we
get
Practice.
towards it? Or
How do we build towards that?
Well, build towards it. I just want to elaborate a little bit on what Queen said. Yeah, like by basically, giving like our people just knowledge of like the history of abolition. Because to understand now, you must understand then. So like and basically making them aware of things that are connected to abolition, like gentrification and colonialism and capitalism.
Come on.
They all cousins.
So I feel like those are things that are helpful too. That to give our people knowledge that help them basically work towards building abolition.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%, Rodney. Awareness is the first step. Definitely. I feel like for me at least, the second step is organizing and action. We need to know and gain that knowledge of what's going on, where it's happening, and who we need to hold accountable. Because I think folks forget about that. We need to knock on doors and see what's up. My next question for you, Queen, is how we can get our youth involved that don't fully know about abolition or is in these systems like the child welfare system, juvenile justice system, how we can get them to speak their truth and also step up to the plate.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just named it, like with so many different community connections, like Collective Climb, Care Not Control, we're here, right? Like we have all of these orgs that are youth-led that are wanting other young people to be in this space and be the leaders of the change that like we envision with abolition, right? And so
sure.
I really feel like, us all continuing to do our thing, reaching out to young people we all build with. I know we all are connected with young people in some way through advocacy, through training, through circles, through just community building. And so I'm always just like, let's all just stay connected. I think it's so easy also for this work to feel very disconnected. Right. I do it in West Philly, you do it in North Philly, somebody else does it in South, right? Like, I think it's always so good that we're also all sitting here and talking about our different strategies. We might not use the same one, one, but to know like, all right, Nina's over here using this strategy and I'm over here using this one. Here's how we can connect. Here's maybe how we keep our separate, right? And there's no shade to that. There's no disrespect. It's all of us respecting each other's strategy and like how we do that in the best way. Like I said, there's going to be a million experiments that get us to abolition. Because honestly, there were a million experiments that got us to capitalism and imperialism that we're in right now, right? Like European, Anglo folks, they did not just like stumble upon this and were like, I cracked the code, right? It was hundreds of years of redoing this system on themselves, on other folks until they perfected it here. And so I think for us, it's a similar thing. We're going to have to keep working on this in the same way. We're going to have to keep building up our communities to feel empowered and feel like the leaders, especially our young people, so that by the time we do get to that millionth experiment, we're like, all right, we don't even got to know. We all know what it feels like to be in abolition because we also know what it doesn't feel like, right? And so like that's how I feel like you said, it's not easy. It's not going to be a short process. It might not happen in our lifetimes, but I believe that we're planting seeds for next generations to also be able to take that up. And when young people feel empowered, they'll take it from us. They'll be like, yeah, chill, queen. I got you. Like, go be somewhere. Like, go be on a stoop somewhere. And we'll be the ones on the street, Like, that's my hope, is that we're always thinking about, like, the person who's next, right? So that's my hope for, like, how we continue to build young people up in abolition, is we all just stay connected.
I love that.
Yeah. I'd love to know for y'all, though, like, how do you guys feel like we actually can practice and do abolition with our young people? Because...
Well, I feel like we have to like bridge the gap because it's like there's many like different age ranges where there's problems at.
Yeah.
So like a youth or an individual that are incarcerated versus someone who got incarcerated as a child but is trialed as an adult.
Right.
It's two different things that they have to go through in life. Like that person, whether they got 25 years or whatever, they have to come home and they might not have family to come home to. Or rather, the youth, they have family to come home to, but they can't get to their family because they got to go through courts and trial tribulations and things like that. So bridging the gap, we will have to bring into a new workforce development, educational activities and programs for our youth.
And I love that because I was just about to go into programs. I'm real big on programs. We all in Philadelphia, so as y'all might have noticed, most of our rec centers is not open.
Yeah.
They lack programming. And I think that's crazy because if you go to Lemon Hill, if you go down South Street, any predominantly YT area in Philadelphia, you will see programming. They got kayaking in Lemon Hill. They got places to chill. It's not just water fountains and bathrooms. So I feel like if we want our young people to actually be passionate about something, enjoy themselves, we need to create programming within the schools, within the community, like back in the good old days. I want to see football teams. I want to see art programs. I feel like we need a couple studios. You know what I mean? Rappers we got in the city, we got so much talent here. So my way of, or at least my approach to abolition is creating opportunities. Our young people, they make the choices they have based off what they know. And if they're in a community where it's not much going on, they're going to be like, all right, I'm bored. Let's go get that Johnny. Let's pop out. I know I was in a couple Johnnies. Good days. But had there been a driving courses out there for us young people that can't afford them $100 driving classes or don't have parents that can teach us how to drive, maybe them kids won't be out there still in them cars or whatever it is they doing. So we got to figure out what's the harms going on in these communities and actually heal those harms because, as you know, most of them communities where their needs is met, it's not all that going on out there. Maybe their kids not as bored as ours. What about you, Rod?
I'm gonna abbreviate this, but I feel like two things would be basically like it's unteaching them harmful behaviors. They have been taught to them and they think that's the way of life. So basically, I feel like that would be step one, and also not being biased. I feel like, and also not being biased, because I feel like also as me as an advocate I feel like, or doing work around just juvenile justice, I feel like I can be biased sometimes, but that's something like I feel like has been done to me growing up as a child, and I feel like that's something we need to teach our youth to unlearn and not be biased towards one another because I feel like it just basically creates harm.
A lot of trauma into that too,
A
though.
whole lot of trauma.
And I feel like something that all three of you talked about that I so agree with, like if, and I feel like I was thinking about more as like each of y'all were talking is like that what's so beautiful about abolition that is the exact opposite of the system we live in is that like this would only be one answer, right? The system we live in would be like, cool, okay, Nino gave us the answer. Now that's going to be the answer for everybody, right? That's going to be the one size fits all, and everybody's got to fit their foot in that shoe.
Individualized approach.
And actually, yeah, that's what I think is so beautiful about abolition. Like every process I hold, every time somebody's like, hey, I don't want to go to the police, what do? That process looks so different. None of those processes look the same. And I think that's also one really beautiful thing about abolition is like we get to control it. We get to be like, hey, this is what safety means. This is what care means. This is what the timeline means, right? Like a big thing we say in like our transformative justice processes is like we move at the speed of trust. We don't move at the speed of courts, right? Like, and so like even those things that make it, like you said, so individualized is what I love about abolition that for me was so traumatizing about all the systems we live in, like that you have to fit yourself into it to be successful, or you have to be in a very specific box to get the best situation from it. You have to be the best student, you have to be the best victim, you have to be the best offender, you have to be the best everything to get any of the fruits of this system. And like abolition is like, nah, you just get it being yourself. You get what you need for being you.
Or like this is the only consequence to this punishment.
Exactly.
The only way this can be repaired, and that's not always the case. Well,
Exactly.
it's never the case.
Yeah. Like two people come to us with the same harms, right? Get two completely different outcomes. Like one could be a circle where people are reconciling. Another one could be them writing letters and they make an agreement to never speak to each other again. And both of those are healthy because it's not recreating harm and it's giving people what they need to heal, right? Where like the system would be like, nah, somebody's got to go to jail, which is a law. It's a law that if somebody gets a DV call here, they have the police have to arrest somebody.
Very retributive.
Right? Very, very, like all of that. Very punitive. Yeah, like that's a law. It's a law in many states. And that's considered a progressive law that supports victims, right? Yeah. And like, I think we can all agree like how dangerous that is where like somebody has to be arrested for a DV, like, and domestic violence, like, call. Like somebody has to be arrested. And so like, what if there was something different, right? Like I come from a city where like a lot of what we did in Boston was trying to create a program that was completely based on community responders. So like was trying to take away police from like specifically mental health and family calls. So if like, 911 was getting that, they would get dispatched to our community response program instead of going to the police. And like, those are the things that I think are also important for us to know. It's like, yeah, Queen's response is going to be so different than Nino's response. And that's actually beautiful about abolition. Like, that's what we need. We don't need robots, like, replicating each other 10,000 times. Like, sorry, lawyers. But, like lawyers, Or, like, judges. Sorry, judges.
Sorry, but not sorry.
Facts. And that's so real because our criminal legal system, they got pretty much 3 questions. What crime was committed? Who did it? And what do they deserve? And they pretty much basically go off that. And then abolition or the restorative justice practices, we really ask what harm was caused, who's responsible, and what do both parties, not just the person that we consider the victim, but what do everybody need to heal and walk away and go on with their lives and not be impacted by it months later, years later, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I think that's what we really got to lean towards. And actually, I got a question, and this for everybody at the table. What advice would we give our criminal legal system around abolition? Because, again, we know abolition, that's not happening today. It's not happening next week. It probably won't happen in the next 5 years. But all our goal is to eventually dismantle prisons and create a safer space. So how can our police, our lawyers, our judges create a better environment for the people that currently have to go through it, because that's the only option we have?
Well, I'll take first on that because I was actually in the system fighting against what you're saying. I believe it starts with the prosecutors and judges, for one. They have to have faith in our youth. And they also have to know the what, how, and why the circumstances took in place. I feel like that's very important.
That's so real.
Well, I get his response, but I feel like the question you is, because we're supposed to be, abolition is getting rid of systems, right? So I don't think I would want to tell them anything because we hear people try to basically. Because if I was to tell them anything, I would say do what we've been doing is creating like our own system, in which we had leaders try to do that and they was murdered. So I don't know personally what I would tell them other than shut this shit down.
Shut that shit down.
I know, that was mine. I was like, can you quit your job? Like, advice I could give you is like, get that pension and leave. Like, what like, I guess that's the best advice I'm gonna give a person if you want to be, if you want to quit. Yeah, that'd be your best way to support. But I also really appreciate that because I do think, right, like like again, not all of our strategies are the same, and like that's okay, even abolition. There are folks who believe abolition is going to be a gradual process that we have to do by like slowly breaking down these systems piece by piece, right? And other folks who believe like, nah, one day or over a certain amount of time, we're just gonna stop engaging in these things and we're gonna have our own things that are starting to build. It could be a mix of all those things, it could be one or the other, but also just like naming that all of these processes are also a part of abolition, that some of these things are gonna happen at their own time, right? And like that neither of those are the right or wrong answer either, that I think is really important.
For sure. Appreciate that. Let's see. Bob, check. How we feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Good.
I feel like we could probably
Good.
keep yapping for like another hour.
Right.
at
I'm feeling
least.
pretty sturdy too. As everybody was talking, I had this one main thing on my mind the entire time. And it was really, what are we currently doing in our communities? Because I know what y'all doing. The people don't know what we doing. They don't know what we getting into. I'm going to answer it first while y'all marinate y'all answers, right? All right, what up, y'all? Again, I'm Britt. I work, I ain't gonna say where I work, but I'll tell you all what I do. So I train our young people in the history of systematic oppression globally and, of course, in America. I also teach them circle keeping, and you mentioned circle keeping a lot, and I feel like you know more about it than I do. So after you answer your question, can you, like, give the people a little circle
Let's
keeping?
tag team it. Let's
We
do it
gonna
together.
tag team it. It'll be cute. But yeah, I teach circle keeping to teenagers 15 to 25 in the city. I also run healing spaces for people impacted by community violence and gun violence because we gotta take care of our people, take care of ourselves. That's just a little bit of what I do. Also, I'm on a board at a law firm, and our goal is to like abolition towards the child welfare system. So that's a little cute. It's a little fun.
Come on.
Nino, what you getting into?
Well, as a former or would-be juvenile lifer, I take it very like, I don't know how to explain it, but I take it very serious when dealing with the livelihood of children and when they're in the system, because as far as me, I was adjudicated of violent crimes, trying to protect my life because someone was engaged in a gunfight with me. But I didn't get to, not necessarily live out my dreams, but I seen a different life for myself, and I couldn't do that based on our systems that are in place. So I feel like if we just give the children a chance to be able to do that, their lives would be different.
That's beautiful.
That part.
Rodney,
My turn.
come on.
Well, here in Philly, I'm a community organizer and a youth advocate. I'm also a case manager, and I go to court to support youth with their hearings and just see and also connect with their attorneys to see like how what is best for them, how can we best support them. I also connect kids with I support youth with getting connected with resources like medical housing,
All of these
medical housing. I help kids support youth obtaining vital documents like birth certificates, social security cards, IDs. I also facilitate workshops around gentrification and capitalism, smart goals and self-empowerment. I'm also a peer specialist and peer specialist and community health worker. And what else do I do? Because I do a little bit of public speaking. I raise awareness. And I'm more of like a public figure now. So I'm a poet, and I'm planning on starting next month, basically creating workshops where youth can express themselves through poetry.
That's what I'm talking about. So Rodney in these streets, we all out here.
Right.
But Rodney, he's spinning again. Queen, how you feeling? What you doing in this community?
I feel good. I mean, I feel like I'm definitely really inspired by everybody here. And, yeah, I'm like, talk about myself. Ugh. But,
That's how I felt.
I guess, yeah. So I guess, yeah, a little bit in my bio, like, I guess my two main roles that I do of, like, supporting youth and families in Philly is first, yeah, through my full-time job, I work as program manager of Healing Futures, which is Philly's first pre-charge, pre-petition youth restorative justice diversion program. So like our sister organization, Collective Climb, we sisters, we also take cases from the district attorney's office, youth cases, and we do community-led processes with them for their charges to be expunged. The beautiful thing about that process that I think I really love to uplift about that program is that it's pre-charge and pre-file, which means that it's not even getting into the hands of a judge or anything like that before it's even getting into that. It's coming straight to the hands of community. And that's also with Collective Climb as well. So first two pre-charge, pre-file RJD programs. And then the other organization that I co-founded is called Dynamic Justice Collective, and that's specifically where I do like outside of system support with people. So if folks want to do a process with their family in conflict, or a couple or an organization that don't want to go to police. It could be around gun violence, it could be around domestic violence, sometimes it's around organizational harm. We do community-led processes with them so that it doesn't even have to touch the criminal justice system. So I've done, circles with families who don't want to go to, family court to resolve an issue, with folks, in DV, in domestic violence who want to figure out how to continue living together, continue being together, or separate in a safe way. We've done a lot of different type of work in that. And so I've been doing both of those roles for almost 3 years now. So
Nice.
in Philly. And then I'm originally from Boston and Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is my home and where most of my family lives. And so there I run a mutual aid fund for Black and Brown community members who are experiencing homelessness, struggling to pay bills. And that's been open since 2020. And then we also have, like I said, a community response program that's being built and continuously built in Boston called HEART Program, and also the Youth Justice Empower Union that's building to create one that's specifically a youth-led community response program. So that's a little bit of the work I do in my hometown and here in Philly, which is what I really consider my second home.
Nice. I love the dual citizenship.
Yeah,
Like
we
it's
got
cute.
to, because somebody was definitely going to be like, what you doing back home? I could already hear like one of my uncles being like, talk about that stuff you do back home. So
Facts.
I had to plug that in real quick.
Nah, I love that. And I love just giving it back to your community and then pulling up on us and saying what you can do for us.
Yeah.
I like that a lot now.
It's so funny. I have never thought about like moving at all, like ever in my life. If you would ask me even like 5 years ago, like, would you ever think about moving out of Boston? I'd be like, you're absolutely crazy. Like, what do you mean? Why? Right, to where? Like, where would I even go? And so like coming here, and funny, Rodney, you brought up like so many of the beautiful workshops you do about gentrification. I know some of our young people have been a part of those workshops. And so like, I just think about, gentrification really changed Boston and changed Black Boston in my home completely, to the point where, me and most of my family cannot even afford to live in public housing. And so to be able to come to Philly and see so much fighting that happens around gentrification, that happens around community care, that happens around anti-policing, it also gives me and my community back home a lot of hope about how we can build solidarity, not just in cities, but across cities also. So that's also how like this city has really inspired me and brought back a lot of hope that I really lost, because Boston is different. I love my city. I could talk bad about them, but that city's a lot. So I love Philly for a community that I think is still really alive and fighting here. So yeah, that's my love letter to Philly a little bit, just a little bit.
Hey, respect. Now, what up with that circle keeping? Tell us, what is a circle? Tell the people.
Okay, again, I'm about to throw this back to you, because don't act like I'm gonna answer this by myself.
No, I got
But
you.
yeah, circle keeping is really it's a Native American, Indigenous, African process of like coming together and talking. It's usually held by circle keepers, and it usually has some sort of like prompts that are created before that gives everybody the opportunity to speak and listen with intention. We usually have like a centerpiece where we all bring an object that means to us, and we have a talking piece that allows us each to speak and listen. And in that circle, we have an ability to like talk a little bit more about what happened in a conflict, how it impacted us, what happened then, what happened since, and like how we want to move forward. And so circle is just kind of a catch-all word for that I use for like how we bring people together in these practices. But some of the things I talked about, facilitators, talking pieces, centerpieces, round questions, those are some core elements of like what circle practice is. And so that was taught to me by Harold and Phil Gattensby of the Tlingit Nation in the Yukon Territory. And same thing of like restorative and transformative justice. I think it's really important where we talk about like where these things come from. Same thing with abolition. It's really important for me to talk about who were my teachers and who were the people that taught me how to do this work. And same thing here, right? We're on Lenape-Hoking, Lenape land. And so making sure that we also respect and recognize not only just the history of indigenous folks here, but also the history of Black folks here and how Philly would not be what it is without both of those histories here.
Yes, absolutely not. I love that. Appreciate that. And I'll speak a little bit more on circle keeping. So at least for me and my approach with circles is we got folks, they come up, they got issue, obviously. Some go down and they call us up, we answer, and they be like, yo, we got a situation. And we help them resolve that situation. Mediators, circle keepers, whatever you want to call it, we have no stakes in the game. Our role is to guide that conversation and create a healthy, healing environment for everybody involved. So we do a little pre-conferencing and we talk to both parties, whether it's the person who caused harm or the person who was harmed. And we chop it up with them. We get an understanding what happened, who did it, who didn't do it, and we get all sides of the story because we know it's three sides to the story: your side, my side, and the truth, right? Once we do that, we bring everybody out. We pull up. It might even be snacks. Is there snacks in your circles?
Oh yeah, it's not a circle if there isn't food. Don't let anybody lie to you. If you're not getting fed, it's not a circle.
Okay, I thought that was just me. I'm glad. National, don't come to the circle without the snacks.
Yes.
So we have snacks involved. Naturally, we sit in that circle. Like Queen was talking, we have our centerpieces that mean something to us and really remind us when we in that space and we getting a little heated, you might look at that picture of your grandma. You might look at that memento, whatever it is. You might be like, yo, let me bring it down. Let me bring it down and let me respect that space. And we allow everybody to share their truth. And then at the end, we create agreements where both parties, they make them agreements. And we be like, all right, y'all down to actually rock with this?
Yep.
And then they agree to it. Or they might be like, no, I'm not feeling this. And actually, I love when that happens because it'd be like, all right, so what you need? Right. You know what I mean? And then, and that really let everybody feel like they seen. Everybody got respect. We not judging nobody in the building. We come to the conclusions, and then we write that agreement down. Everybody agree, and then we follow up. So I feel like circles, for me at least, is something like everybody been saying. We want to intervene on our own as a community. We want to handle our problems on our own. We don't want folks calling the cops, and then they come in and everybody getting shot and arrested. I think. Evenly, like, remember Walter Wallace when his mom was like, come help my son, and they shot his son, and that was crazy. That was a wild night. So when I think of stuff like that where we call the cops and we pleading for help, and some of us know they're not going to help us, but we still call anyway because that might be our last resort. We want to be able to call our community members and be like, yo, I'm going through this. Pull up on us. Can we talk about it? So I love circle keeping. I think it's fun. I be having a little music in the background. Yeah. It's a little vibe.
You got to.
And everybody, how can I put it? Everybody don't got to come to that main conclusion and be like, oh, are we going? It's not kumbaya. Sometimes ain't no hugs, ain't no kisses at the end. It might just be, all right, you said what you said what I said, respect. Don't talk to me ever again.
Those are some of my favorite circles.
Right?
Like when we can get people who really, really like have that against each other to come together and be like, we're never going to talk again, but we're also not going to cause any more harm to each other. Exactly. And we're just going to walk away from this. Like that, for me, a lot more times feels more real sometimes than like people hugging and getting it together. Yeah. It's like, you know what? I have my boundaries. You have your boundaries. And like, yeah, another like, you know, RJ thing is like, you know, I learned about boundaries, you know, for the first time in like high school, and it was like, you know, toxic. Like everybody gets a boundary, right? Somebody pisses you off, boundary, right? And then like, you know, I started learning, and like, you know, it was one of my teachers, Belfina Yawom, who was really like, boundaries is how I love you and how like I love me at the same time. Like that's boundaries. And I think those are the things that like circle can really help us figure out. Like, how do I love you and love me at the same time without either of us getting more hurt? And like, that's what I think is beautiful about circle. And just beautiful, again, like you were saying, like about abolition, like, and about these practices, like these are ancient practices, right? These are practices that
I
go
believe
far
the Mormon
beyond.
tribe, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right.
OGs.
There are literally hundreds and thousands of different ways that people practice restorative justice, right? That's just an umbrella term for the different ways, again, that we do this work outside of the state and we do with our communities. So, like, each and every one of us, you know, like, I know 2 people in the room that are also restorative justice practitioners that maybe aren't owning it right now, but Gabby and Rodney do that work as well. You know, like, Gabby has taught me so much about restorative, justice and practitioner work. And like, I was doing it for years before I met Gabby. And so for us to always constantly be learning from each other, to be building from each other, I think is also like what's so beautiful about this practice. All of us are experts and all of us are learners. Like
Exactly.
it's none of us are going to be here like, oh, I'm the teacher. Like even here, like we're having a conversation. It's not like me up on a whiteboard being like, abolition, here's what it is, write it down in your notebook and there'll be a test on Wednesday. Like, no, that's not what we're doing here.
What about the naysayers? What about the folks that be like, abolition not possible? What about the murderers? Where are we gonna put them? What about the people who use that to discredit our work and what we do?
Yeah.
What we say to that?
Yeah.
That's why I said I feel like it's the what, the why, and how.
Mm.
You
Nuance.
find those out, and 9 times out of 10, you'll know what to do with that person. But it's really just the practices, the system,
Yeah.
and we just reduce it. That's all we have to do, reduce it.
Yeah. And I think like also adding on to that, right, is like I want to be very clear to everybody, including myself, like that I do not believe restorative justice or abolition is a nonviolent movement. Like my belief, and I've done it before, is like sometimes for me, restorative and transformative justice is, oh, like you're doing this harmful thing over and over again. A bunch of us got to pull up to your house. And we just got to tell you, like, we're going to be here every evening if you keep doing that to your wife.
Relentless pursuit.
Every evening.
Relentless pursuit.
And we'll be there. Like, you'll catch us there. And we'll be saying hi to you on your stoop. We'll be saying good morning, good afternoon, good night, but we'll be here, like that will be the thing, like some of the earliest practices of justice in my community when I was growing up was my uncles and my dad going to somebody's house and being like, yeah, we're about to do the same to you if you keep beating her every day. Like that was me seeing like, oh, this is what it means to stand up for each other. And them not throwing that husband away. Also being like, nah, you're a part of our community and you got to get right for your family, for yourself, right? It's that understanding that nobody is disposable and the balance of boundaries, right? Like, do I have to be the person to always be that person? No. Right. But I also don't want it to be like, yeah, that this is a kumbaya, we all have to hold hands movement. That no, we're allowed to be able to have boundaries with the people who hurt us. We're able to say this person does not need to be in my life. We're all able to say that. That's also the beauty of abolition, is we all get free will, free choice, right? But, like for the rapists, for the murderers, I always am like, what if I told you that was also something that happened to that same person, right? Like another like, RJ, OG or restorative justice kind of like teacher, Michelle Alexander always says like violence is never learned from the first time by like doing it. Right. Which
Shout
means
out to
like
Shelly.
you have to. Yeah. Sorry.
Shout out to Shelly. No, you good.
So, and so like, I'm like sitting with that right now too, is like, yeah, like, sure. Yeah. What about the rapists and the murders? Cause they also had to see it too. They didn't just wake up one day and decide I'm going to be this. This was something that was taught to them. And so what's like the larger culture change we have to do that like actually means intervening, right? Like clearly, rape and sexual assault is not going to be fixed in prisons because that's one of the largest sites for sexual assault in the country.
That's mental health. That's
Yeah.
mental health.
So like we're not actually like our system is not interested in ending the cycle of rape or ending the cycle of sexual assault or ending the cycle of like, body like, control. That like that's not what it's interested in.
We'd rather just capitalize off it and deal with it later.
Exactly.
And let's not forget our system played a huge role in that too.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna forget.
Exactly, right? Like all
part.
of those things are connected. And so like that's always kind of my thing is like, yeah, sure. Like what about the rapist? What about what about him? What are we gonna do? Because for some of us, like that's, and I'm gonna be real here, I'm gonna make some people uncomfortable, but like that's our uncle, that's our aunt, that's our community member, that's our next door neighbor. That's that person that raised us up across the street. Like those are people that also have people who care about them, right? And are not disposable. And so it's like, yeah, if we're saying nobody's disposable, we got to actually figure out what about the rapists? What about the liars, right? what about me? Right? Like, I'm sorry, y'all. That's always what I'm doing. But like, yeah, like, what about me? I've lied. I've hurt. I've harmed. Yeah, like, no, I've never raped anybody. I've never killed nobody. But like, yeah, what about it?
Well, I've been up to no good in my day.
Right. We've been up to no good. And so what happens to us?
Exactly.
Are we saying that anytime something bad happens, you get thrown away, you get removed from community? You know? And like,
Exactly.
again, sometimes some of that is also like, we get to decide that. We get to decide as a community, hey, somebody does something like that, we get to say, hey, as a community, we all agree we might have to take some space. Right? And like, that's what I also feel like is important about abolition. It's reacting to the system, but it's also proactive, right? It's trying to build something new. That's like, all right, so we know we don't want to do jail and prison. What do we do instead when somebody hurts each other? Like, that's what I feel like is the abolition project, you know?
Yeah, I think y'all J. Cole fans in here.
Here we go.
He my number 2. I love you, Cole, but I'm a K dot.
Come on.
I'm sorry. I could walk if I have to. But J. Cole, he had this one crazy line in a song, and it was everybody mentioned suicide prevention. They even made a hotline. But I got a question. What about the folks that want to commit homicide? And then he said something like, I need a number for my niggas to call when they get the urge to get triggers involved. You know what I mean? And when I was listening to that, I was like, yo, that's some real shit. Cause we all know the hotline for suicide, and suicide is a crazy situation, and I feel for everybody that's going through it and mental health and all that. Word. But like, we got a call where if someone want to take their own life and be like, yo, I'm done with this, which land of the free. It's your life. Do what you want with it. Maybe. I guess there's nuance in that. But also, why don't we got nothing to call for folks who genuinely like is in that moment where they like, yo, this nigga need to die tonight. Like, and they don't got nobody to call to bring them down back to earth. And I'm pretty sure if they was to call the boys 911, they'll just get arrested or something. Like, who do we hit up when we in those situations? So I like that J. Cole said that in like his song, and that had me thinking like a lot. I don't know how that connects to our conversation, but
it's a thought right there.
Right? That's our food for thought.
Right?
How are we those people, right? We call. How do we become those people, I think is the real thing.
Call to action. Word. So call to action. So what we gonna do is we wrapping this up? All right, bet. It was great having you, Queen. You've been the truth. The sweater is fire. Can we pan on the sweater right quick?
I mean,
you're gonna have to tell me where you got it from.
Cute for everybody. No, thank y'all so much. I really love talking with all y'all. Like, literally some of my favorite people are here. And then, like, I feel like I've also just grown my community so much. So, yeah, I'm really excited for y'all to see this. I'm really excited for us to continue connecting and for y'all to connect with them. Because this is going to be such an incredible space to continue learning about abolition and like how youth in Philly are really doing this work. So please lock in with them.
Absolutely. Shout out to Nino. Shout out to Rodney. Woo! I'm gonna close y'all out with this. How can you be that person in your community where if someone needs you, they can call on you? How we gonna build in our community those hotlines or them connections where we can keep each other safe without getting each other arrested? Y'all have a good one. This is Uncaged Potential, justice from the ground up. Shout out to Care Not Control. Shout out to Collective Climb. Hit them up. Get with them 15 to 19. Ooh. All right.
Come on.